Welcome to the Sage Advice Podcast, transforming the way people think and work so their organizations can thrive. Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Ed Kless, and with me today is Mike Smart. Mike is the founder and managing principal at Egress Solutions, a product management and product marketing consultancy. He brings more than 20 years of experience with lean techniques in product strategy, product adaptation, product launch, and customer acquisition. By the numbers, Mike has successfully launched software products for the small and medium technology firms that have generated more than $250 million in revenue. Through Egress, he has also consulted on product strategy and product integration in mergers and acquisitions valued at over $1.7 billion. Welcome to the Sage Advice Podcast, Mike Smart.
Ed, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. Appreciate it.
Well, first off, Mike, why do you do what you do?
I came into this role sort of out of a corporate role where I ran product for a long time and a little bit frustrated that it was so hard. And I'd done a product team 3 times in a row for a mid-market software company. And it was the third time. And I said, there's something to this that I'm not getting. And maybe it's me. And the more I talked to my constituents and my network, I found it wasn't me. Everybody was struggling. And I said, there's a business here somewhere to help people get better at implementing best practices around product management. Now, this was more than 10 years ago. So we've moved the ball around product management, the concept of best practice, all of these things, a lot of things we take for granted. Agile Scrum was in its infancy around that time. Maybe not the infancy, but it certainly wasn't pervasive the way it is now. And I just moved into this space because I felt like watching technology companies struggle, all of the waste just seemed there had to be a better way. So I got into this, and the more I started helping these companies, I saw myself and some of these product team leaders frustrated, disempowered, and just doing little things to show them how to do the job better, to move them from defense to offense, just made me feel better. I felt like I was helping people. I wouldn't classify what I was doing as saving the world, certainly not that. I wasn't healing people, but I felt like I was bringing some common sense to a job that deserved a better treatment than it did. And it just scaled from there. The business, we developed a reputation. Private equity firms who live in the mid-market started reaching out to us, and it just caught on from there. And it's been fun. I'm still enjoying it now.
And you mentioned something there about moving from from defense to offense. And talk to me a little bit about this whole idea of moving from that in the game within the game of moving from cloud to the cloud from both a publisher and a partner perspective.
So the obvious, one of the observations that we see, and we're getting clients to come to us, and while the last time I looked at it's PwC that used to do a listing of the top 100, 200. I haven't seen it maybe a year or two. And it would list source of revenue. And most of us who live in the industry think that the cloud is pervasive and everything is in the cloud and anybody who's anybody. And when you look at the revenue sourcing, and I know it's changed dramatically in the last couple of years, but you look at the revenue sourcing, there's some major players out there who are generating still a lot of their income from being on-prem or hybrid prem solutions. So this shift is happening at that level. Microsoft Sage has made an amazing stride to move from an on-prem / licensed business model to a subscription business model. In the mid-market, it's a little different. Many of them are mixed. Some of them are born in the cloud because they're younger. Some of them started 15, 20 years ago, and they're not. And they're coming to this late. So the obvious game that's being played that we're all seeing is, can they move to the cloud? Can they put the right platform pieces in place? Can they select the right technology? Can they orchestrate the timing of it? And then capture enough new customers and retain the existing customers to make that shift and keep the cash flow going, right? That's the game that's being played. Within the game, the inside game is, depending upon who you talk to, depending on parts of the organization, there are very different perspectives about what this shift really means. There are winners and losers within this, right? We did a survey with a client last year, and this is not new news, but it's just kind of striking when you see it. Went out and surveyed something like 100, 150 of their customers, not a huge sample size, but meaningful. And we asked them to rank the influence in the buying decision, and salespeople are at the bottom. And so when you start seeing that, and then you add to it the dynamic of shifting a business model to a service-oriented business model, well, who steps to the forefront to drive the business now? And then how should we be looking at the business? If it's not a win a logo, collect the money and move on sort of thing, a kind of a divide and conquer kind of, if you want to use a military sort of approach to it, then what is it? Well, it becomes very different. There's some organizations that we've attached ourselves to have playing around with this idea of dividing up the business around land, expand, adopt, and renew sort of principles. And each one of these then starts to look at being, and this is something we advocate, being its own business model in of itself. The business of landing is very different than the business of adoption. The business of expanding is very different than the business of adoption and the business of renewal. And so some of the companies we're starting to play with, we're teasing out this notion, you have to look at this business cycle that you're in as 4 distinct disciplines, and there are going to be leaders and followers in each one of these. And it isn't the old model where sales comes in and we close the deal, we collect 80% of the life cycle revenue, and then we collect an annuity. It's we're going to earn the customer's money and recommitment at every phase. So it's causing this, I call it game within a game, because we're having to resensitize roles. Customer success steps to the forefront. Are they ready for it? Not quite. Many are making progress. Sales has to step to the back after they land a new logo. Are they willing to accept that? Some are. And so there's just a different sort of model that's going to emerge out of this. It looks different than what people like you and I have been around the business for a while have seen. And there's no right answer. I think everybody's in some level of experimentation. And then all of us are trying to figure out, how does it scale? Because it will change as this matures and as it grows.
And what about the people side of it? Is it just a matter of, hey, some of the people that you have right now are just not going to be able to play that way in the future, or have to assume a different role? Or is it that you can actually bring them along and help them overcome it?
I think that's a wonderful question. So one of the things that we're seeing as we talk to clients, and again, we're not the brightest people in the room on this. We're leaning in on, like I said, organizations. One of them is a service-oriented research organization called TSIA. I've done a lot of research on this. What we're finding is that there is obviously a refitting or retooling of skill setting. And it's also like a discovery process to say, you may be in a particular job and you may find yourself better suited in this new model being a different job. And the obligation of the company, I hope, and most of our clients are operating in this, is we want to be able to transform and change and help people grow into different roles if that's what's required. In some cases, there are going to be people that are going to opt out. I'm a lawyer, I'm a big game hunter, I like closing big 7-figure deals, I made my living off of it. Those are my tarps on the wall. That business model may not shift, may not fit that person. And they may say, I don't want to play this game. I don't want to play small ball. I'm mixing metaphors, but that's okay. I don't want to play small ball. I don't want to be that sort of role player inside the little bit of the box that you want to put me in. And those people will have to be given gracious ways to move on and find other things that work for them. There will be other companies that will decide the same thing. We don't play that game. We go after these large, big deals, and we want to play this until the end of it. And those people probably will find places where they can go. They may be near industry. They may even be out of industry where that still makes sense to do. But what looks like it's happening in the mainstream of our industry, the enterprise software industry, is this model shift. And I say if I want to go back to a sports metaphor, we're at halftime, maybe, right? We're not sure what's going to happen in the second half of this.
And Mike, we have an exit question that we ask all of our guests, and that is, who is a hero of yours and why are they a hero?
So I have several, and if I have to narrow it down to 2, I'm going to go out on a limb. Probably one's going to kind of be very interesting. The other one won't be known. So I'm a big hero in my heroes are people who overcome obstacles. And so one of the ones, I was thinking about this morning, is the biblical character David. Because to me, he epitomizes the human condition of having to struggle and overcome and become victorious. My current implementation of that is someone by the name of David Goggins, who is someone who was a 300-pound guy who made himself into a Navy SEAL. And if you get a chance to read his book, which is, I believe the name of the title is You Can't Hurt Me, and he's a speaker, a very prolific speaker, it's an amazing tale of somebody who should have never amounted to anything. But he took himself overweight and put himself in an amazing condition and became an ultra runner, like running races of 100 miles. And just his whole demeanor and his whole outlook on life is about putting yourself through suffering and pain, which I'm not big on that. But what comes from the other side is growth and identification and self-discovery. And I would say, if you have people listening, be careful in the context you listen to him, because he literally curses like a sailor. But he has an interesting story about overcoming and achieving, and it's just a powerful message.
And lastly, Mike, how can somebody contact you?
We can reach me at Egress, Egress Solutions.net, or you can find me very easily on LinkedIn and just type in Mike Smart or Michael Smart, and my page will pop up. And I happily respond to anybody on any mechanism they want to reach out to me.
All right. Mike Smart, founder and managing principal at Egress Solutions. Thanks so much for being a guest on the Sage Advice podcast.
Thank you for having me. Take care, Ed.
For more Sage Advice, visit and subscribe at sageadvicepodcast.com.